one of the challenges of being a marketing and word person in a tech company is that there are times that I have absolutely no idea what we're talking about. And this happens to be one of those times. It's like, and they tell me that we're speaking English, but honestly, if geek was a language, I'm definitely not bilingual. So today we actually are. We're going to be speaking about something called platform and DevOps. And I genuinely have no clue, which is why I've called in three of the experts. Paul, I've called in Daniel, and I've called in John T. Paul is the executive head of cloud at Synthesis. John T is the practice lead of platforms. I hope he knows what he's talking about. And apparently Daniel has done some really cool stuff with us. So maybe once the three of them share some of the stuff, not only will I know what we're talking about, but you will as well. And you'll even see a commercial use for what it is that we are speaking about.
This is Synthesis TV, keeping you on the edge of technology and business.
Welcome, everybody.
How's it? Thanks, Alan.
What? Was that not a good intro?
It was a great
I feel very
intro.
judged right now. Can you
be
sense
judged.
this? It's there, hey? It's there. It's like tangible. All right, so Paul, let's start with you, because the best way to understand anything is with a why, and the why is business.
Yeah.
Because somebody watching this will say, well, what is it that what's the point in terms of my own business? What is this commercial value of platform engineering?
So Howard, I think your intro in not understanding what it's all about is it talks to the complexity of a lot of the things that we do. And I think as an organization, what we really try and help the market and our customers with is simplifying and demystifying some of these things. And so platform, which John T. passionately has been building over a period of time, is really a big effort to try and reduce that complexity for our customers. So what we're ultimately doing is we're not taking the complexity away from the technology, because that's never going to change. But how do we make sure that from a customer experience perspective, that complexity is at least lowered from a perspective anyway. So our view is if we can help our customers to deploy technology faster, easier, and cheaper, there's a win. Right? And I think ultimately that's what we're trying to get out of platform. So we will take over the burden, if we can call it that, or the excitement, I'd prefer to call it that, of building these great technology solutions that we can build patterns from so we can reuse them for our customers. If I can deploy it faster, therefore make it cheaper and less complex for our customers ultimately, I think there's a massive benefit. So that's ultimately the objective. And I think Dan will talk to a very practical use case from a digital point of view later.
And I think that's got an advantage, because then we can actually try and see
Absolutely.
how it deploys
Absolutely.
and what the point is.
But like a classic case, and I think John T. can expand on it technically as well, but we had a customer where we deployed some Kubernetes containerization capability to them. We underestimated the complexity of it. What we thought was probably a 4 to 5 month program ended up at 8 months to deploy this. Really complex. It was
and
from
why would that
on-premise.
have been? Would that have been because of their legacy issues, because of their user requirement, because they didn't really fully get what they could obtain from it?
So quite a few, well, pretty much everything you mentioned, to be honest, but like a lot of legacy, it is transformational, it is modernization at the same time, which brings in different code, it's repatriation of things. It is complex, and we probably underestimated some of those complexities in the background. The bottom line for us, from a customer experience perspective, it took nearly double the timeline to implement that, right? And whilst they understood that, and we made sure they understood why that was the case, for us, that's not a great customer experience, right? Like we want to absolutely, we always strive to over-deliver, right? if we now go a couple of pages forward in the book to where we've deployed virtually the same thing, we did it in under 2 weeks for the same service, utilizing the same pattern that we've developed and built, and we were able to execute on that. And the 2 weeks was really around the configuration and the subtleties
So
of
in
it.
other words, it's standardized it. It's standardized it. It's created maybe a package for the customer.
Accelerator, you can call it. Yeah. I love the word accelerator because
Absolutely.
it just
Nice
talks
word.
because it talks about speed, it talks about conformity, it talks about replication, all that kind of good stuff, which is really cool. But yeah, I mean, so that was a great use case for us, and I mean that was fantastic, right? So I mean, 2 weeks versus 8 months. That's our problem. The 8 months. If you look at 2 weeks versus 4 months, 5 months that we originally scoped,
No, that's
it's
incredible.
massive, right?
Huge.
So they get to market quicker, right? They transform their business quicker. Plus, quite honestly, they pay less.
And maybe on the back of that, Paul, you're talking about a dedicated DevOps team doing Kubernetes there. If we take let's say a standard sort of medium enterprise development team, you may not have that specialty. So dealing with Kubernetes and all the stuff falls onto your dev team. And what they've rolled out now, you're talking about probably to have this maturity 12 to 18 months if you don't have that dedicated DevOps team. It's a huge game changer.
I think just to maybe sum it up on what platform is and where it comes from is the kind of light bulb moment that it's going to be impossible for every team to be an expert in everything. And we actually have to ask the question of, right, we don't want to constrain innovation, we don't want to control people, of course not. But we need to understand that maybe people are not going to be able to be experts in everything. I think Kubernetes is a great example because it's...
Just for anyone who doesn't know, what is Kubernetes?
So Kubernetes is a open source containerization engine that Google created originally about 10 years ago now, I guess. And it's become the de facto standard for running containers in the world, in enterprise.
Right.
It's very customizable. It is very complex. And it has a massively steep learning curve. Okay. And you can run anything on it. I mean, people are running generative AI workloads on it and using that as
Right,
well
but it's not. It's not for everybody. In terms of deployment and use.
No, 100%. And
Right.
I think the idea is, and the way I like to think of it as well, and that talks to the patterns and the templates and that side of things, is how do we actually expose the rock star knowledge, if you want to think about that, without having to have the rock star in the room. You
Okay, I
don't
like
have to
that.
have the expert
Yes.
there, but we know that the expert, for example, contributed and helped build the pattern. In this case, the Kubernetes pattern. We had someone internally who knows Kubernetes backwards better than I've ever seen anybody know Kubernetes. And he spent a lot of time working on it. He's done the hard yards. He's done that 12 to 18 months learning curve. And all of a sudden, we don't need that person on that. So fundamentally, platform engineering came to answer the question of how do we enable people to get to value quicker, generate self-ownership, they're doing it themselves, whilst at the same time creating a kind of abstracted level of the technology to say, I don't need to be the deep
So can you just, and I might be saying, talking complete rubbish, but the way in which I'm almost picturing this is the world has changed and our businesses have changed to the extent that there might have been a time where your CIO or CTO, whatever it was, would have a full handle on every aspect of, or most aspects of technology that would pertain to that industry. But things are developing at such a speed, and there's so many other opportunities that are evolving and innovating that it almost becomes impossible for that knowledge to remain in-house without it taking an enormous amount of time to upskill and deploy. So what this does is it almost outsources that tech knowledge, and so you can carry on running your business, and we are looking at and synthesizing all the different types of technology, the cool stuff that can assist your business.
I would take it one step further. I say it's not just your C-level individuals; it's your teams themselves. If you've got a mobile
Interesting that.
application,
Okay, because I always think of
as
it from that point of view.
Yeah,
But
as
maybe
an
you're right.
example, if you
Yeah.
take like a digital team, right? Their mantra, their focus, their business value is developing innovative solutions to problems or opportunities that exist in an enterprise or a client, etc. Their goal is not necessarily to reinvent the cloud,
Right.
or to deploy the cloud. They want to build the next big app for shipments,
Yes.
or for banking or insurance or what have you. They need this underpinning of a solid cloud infrastructure or solid DevOps infrastructure, whatever it is. And that line of what they need depends on a lot of things. So we'll talk about Kubernetes as the current use case, but you can think of scaffolding your entire projects, whether it's the back ends, the front ends, whatever you need as a team to deliver what your value is, your value stream. So you're the mobile app team, you're the website team, the AI team, whatever it is. How do I say you need to be domain experts in what you are domain experts in? That's what you need to innovate. Leave the rest of the stuff to us.
To people who like to talk this language.
Yeah.
Can you give us that a good use case?
Yeah, I mean, maybe just an analogy on the back of that I was thinking of is like, you've got to think of this as, and to Jonty's point of, I actually think this reopens up creativity again, because you're now removing that barrier to entry.
Right.
Because this technology, to understand this before you get to your business logic, there is so much now that like you have to know what's going on, where if that's taken away from you, if you want to train racing drivers and that's why you're going to do it, why are you building the cars as well? Let someone else build the Ferrari and you're going to train the drivers and they're going to be the best drivers.
Yeah, it's true, because not everybody could be that expert in Ferrari engineering.
I mean, Lewis Hamilton can't design an F1 engine, but will one
You
of the
know
world's
that
best
there are going to be
drivers.
comments here saying that he can at the bottom.
You really waded
There
into that one.
could be
I
other
actually
comments
can't
as
deal with
well.
it. Please don't comment. He didn't mean it. It was just an example. Okay, because I can't really.
But that's what I'm saying. So, for example, with us, we're in the process of putting down like standardizing our developments and things like that. And one of the things we've been going through is how from the beginning do we get more accurate with being able to judge our work and our tasks. And for me, it's, well, if we can rely quite heavily on our plumbing, our technology that's underlying what we're going to do, it makes that judgment far easier. So I know from the beginning, to get a bit technical here, like we're developing a payment system. So that means there's going to be a lot of traffic.
Right.
And how do you simulate that now? Right now, to set up that whole process from scratch to be able to simulate 100,000 people paying at the same time, it's a lot. But suddenly you now have the tools to do this and it becomes almost trivial. And you just get Lego blocks now. Rather than having to carve it yourself and shape everything, you get the Lego blocks, you put them together and you go for it. I can now sit down and go, CIO, CTO, your app can handle 300,000 users. And that is stuff I can give you. Now when we go to production, it's not, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
It's, I'm pretty
And not
sure.
starting from the beginning.
Yeah.
Because this has been, it's been made into, there's a system around.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So, Paul, who would be who's a customer here?
Sure. It's quite varied, but I guess any organization that's looking to build and has got very focused teams that don't have core platforming kind of skills, like infrastructure, cloud infrastructure, and related technologies, where they don't have that core skill. Like we can certainly help them in that space, and from a platform perspective, looking at specific areas where we can accelerate certain initiatives. It's kind of the customer. So there's not really many customers that wouldn't fall into that, but basically based on the technologies that their use case might require would define what their user requirement would be, if that kind of makes sense. I think I spoke
Yes.
over myself a little
Yes.
bit.
No,
But so for
yeah.
example, to your point earlier, not everybody's a Kubernetes customer, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that suddenly platform's not for them. Like it could be another use case. It could be around accelerating the build of AWS as a from a control tower landing zone perspective. We could execute that really well. I mean, I remember in our DevOps discussion a few weeks ago, one of the use cases we spoke around there was a transition process. And we spoke about our managed services capability and what used to take us 3 months to onboard a customer by deploying tooling, processes, people, all that kind of thing, now takes us under 2 days. And that is a combination between leveraging tooling from an automation perspective and the DevOps perspective, like pipelines, infrastructure as code, etc., but all executed out of the platform that Synthesis have built under the guidance of John.
So do you think that this type of platform alongside DevOps actually is going to be the way forward for companies, for customers to engage with their technology providers?
I certainly think it's one of the ways. Absolutely. And I think DevOps and platform are synonymous with each other. I think it's the automation that we build through the DevOps capability that allows us to orchestrate these tools and deliver these applications, tools, patterns, etc., out of the platform. And for us, the journey, John T, what's it, 2 years?
About 2 years.
2 years that we've been on this journey, so it's still a baby.
Still a child.
Yeah, absolutely. It's still not quite walking yet.
What about John T? We're talking about.
Thanks. I was
We
waiting.
don't want to get too personal, but we've done some really amazing stuff, and we really built some really cool stuff. Dan's already spoken about it. We've done things around EKS and GKS, and we've done, which is the Google and the Amazon kind of Kubernetes services that we're able to deliver as kind of accelerated solutions to the market. We really are extending that much further and looking constantly to build in more kind of areas where we can accelerate customers' journeys, and that'll come through conversations, use case requirements, etc., as we develop it. But it's built on really solid technology. And I mean, John T used the word rockstar earlier. I mean, interesting enough, it comes out of I mean, it's good. Yeah, I mean, it comes out of Spotify, which obviously we all know is a music streaming service. Yeah. So we utilizing technology that is just like straight out of the.
I think the one thing I would add to what Paul's been saying is this question about does platform engineering and DevOps, how do they coexist? Was actually asked to one of the. This question was asked to one of the original kind of authors or founders of the DevOps movement last year, and he responded. He said, "There's no conflict. They are the same." One of the core tenets of DevOps was about breaking down silos, getting people to move quicker and self-own and stuff like that. He said, if you adhere to those principles of DevOps, everything else is just simply engineering. So if platform engineering enables that, and that's part of DevOps.
It's not exactly. That's
so
exactly right.
When we look at platform, again, we want to accelerate the time to business value. So whatever that business value is, and that's to Paul's point. So is accelerating the deployment of an AWS landing zone environment, or is that accelerating the deployment of a Kubernetes cluster?
Yep.
At the same time, you could also argue that accelerating that is giving an entire Gen AI launch pad as a template. That also accelerates time to value because the kind of idea is what is the tangible business value. So in the case of Dan's
it's always the question. That's your fundamental question.
It was the payments engine. It wasn't the Kubernetes cluster. It was the payments engine that you needed to be able to demonstrate could handle the load. For a landing zone, it's having a configured, secure, cost-effective landing zone. It's not deploying; it's having that environment there.
So there's no question in my mind that we'll start to see a lot more technology deployment coming this way. I call it, how long will it be before we see a significant amount of customers moving in this direction? Daniel, I'll start with you because you look the most unsure.
I mean, if you have to, I can tell you, and let's go back to that use case, that one of the things is it needed to hold all this traffic, and I was like, how are we going to do this? And this was like it was my silver bullet for this specific case, and it freed me to now think, okay, I've got that, I can go for it. I mean, I'm going to sell, I can tell you personally, I'm selling this hard. Look, there are specific cases, and where those use cases are for Kubernetes, I'm in here with the platform. Let's do this. I can show you from day one. I can give you
A business case.
and business features from day one. We can start. You don't have to worry about all this other stuff. It's done. And
So it's actually a matter of really building, because as you go through this process with other technologies, so it all we can leverage them.
I think
You still haven't given me a number.
if I had to say, I'd give it till we start to see big pickup, maybe within the next 12 to 18 months.
Okay, I like it. John, too?
So I can just, as a point of reference, what Paul said, the software that we're building this on is from Spotify. It's called Backstage. They open source. It's actually, that's what they're using internally, and they turned it into an open source product.
Incredible. Yeah.
And they've seen a 1,000% adoption increase over the last 18 months.
Wow.
So
And then the minute it hits a critical mass,
yeah, it's and again, this is just one of many options that are out there on the market. This one we've kind of decided to have a look at. It is open source, so it was easier to adopt in that respect. But if I look at the kind of names of enterprises that are joining this thing, it's all the big names. So I don't know what the number is. I hate that question because every technologist who ever puts a number to a future thing is always proven wrong.
This is why people don't trust you, John T. I mean, I don't know if it's even true.
No,
that they
people don't trust me. That's for different reasons.
Come on, come up with a number.
Yeah, I think it's going to just snowball. I think
so too.
exponential growth. I think the next 12 to 18 months, but I don't even know what the next 18 months what this ecosystem will
Very
look like
interesting.
right now.
That. Paul.
So Howard, I think it's a lot to do with kind of education of the market
so.
around it, right? So like the reality is it's ready now. The other reality is it should be adopted more now, right? Why is
Yes.
it not? Probably confidence around something like this and misunderstanding
Education.
education, not even misunderstanding, well, it's lack of understanding, right? So what can this really deliver? And I think the more use cases that come out of it, Dan's use case, the Kubernetes use case that we spoke about earlier, and way more, so we'll start seeing the adoption of this type of thing. And it won't only be from organizations like Synthesis on the bleeding edge of innovation in technology. We'll start seeing organizations themselves sort of develop their own platform engineering platforms and capabilities around this to execute services for themselves, right? And others. Like, I think it's going to be very, very interesting. I would probably bet on the side of where Dan is, probably 12 to 18 months, only because I think market-wise, educationally, we need to get a little bit more ready. I mean, we've been working on this for 2 years, and the door's not getting beaten down to utilize the platform, right?
But there's always going to be that.
Completely. And the only thing in the way of that is the understanding of what we're offering, right? And I think this is why a conversation like this is good, because it does, as I said earlier, demystify it. Coming in, you were very explicit about the fact that you know what this is. What is this, guys? Like, this is Ghibli Gloop. Like it's a whole bunch of geeks.
And the truth is, now it actually does make sense to me. I do have a sense of what this is, and it's actually incredibly simple.
Exactly. I mean, you hear platform engineering, immediately you go like,
DevOps,
well, I don't understand that. Well, I hope we just demystified DevOps a little bit in our last conversation. But assuming somebody missed out massively, you go to that talk.
You're right,
But if you did miss it, then you could listen to that. But again, I think it again talks to that. And I really think also we mustn't forget that a lot of organizations are in the phase of moving to. And I think when you're moving to cloud or doing a massive DevOps dev project initially, sometimes you're not thinking about some of the accelerators that you can do. You're quite focused in on that. I think we're going to start seeing a lot more of this adoption of things like platform engineering once organizations have moved to cloud and can really take advantage of things like platform engineering, the services the big like AWS's, Microsoft's, Google's provide, and others to that extent. They can start understanding organizations like ourselves that work constantly in cloud and execute all our work out of cloud, like what the advantages are that we're getting by utilizing platform, etc. So I think it's going to be a bit of time, but it's a good place to be.
It is a good place to be. It's a very exciting place to be. And it's also a great topic for or headline for this episode, and probably others as well, is demystifying X, whatever that would be. And that is what we're trying to do, because it's really about showcasing how your business can benefit from this incredible innovation.
Absolutely. And Howard, I mean, I think, we always talk about eating your own dog food, right? And I think at Synthesis we do this really well. So you've heard a use case from Dan around how he's utilized platform engineering to help his team in from the software development perspective in developing a payment solution. We talked about how we reduced the time frame and our transition capability and our managed services competency or capability, right? Two great use cases that we've unearthed. But then we've also got the use case of the Kubernetes deployment for the customer. So we are constantly testing internally around the viability of these products. We're not just taking it at face value and going, good luck, guys, let's do this. We're testing it, and we're proving the business case, and then we're taking it to our customers, and we're seeing the same results for our customers as we've had the privilege of seeing with ourselves. So
Right.
it's awesome working with such smart people,
That is what's so cool about working with smart people. I mean, the way Daniel was also referring to it as fighting the way through this to make sure that this became the best of the best. And that isn't scheduled at all. But either way, it is where we leave it.
He stopped talking.
Right, exactly. That's it. We were told we need to get out of here. I'm Howard Feldman. This has been an episode of Synthesis TV. I'm hoping that they can eliminate this noise in the background.
It must be on fire.
Yeah, this team. I like that. This team is on fire. The floor's getting hot.